Alright, I've made some changes to our template, and if you look at it right now, it's just a basic to-dos list template, and you can find a link to get a copy in the description of the lesson. Our aim right here is to see how we can have a CRF functionality with Adonis.js, so a create, read, update, and delete, right? Let's start with the create. We want to type in some data into this text box, submit it, and actually see it show up right here, which means it's been created in our database and will display all of the to-do lists from our database in this list right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. If I head over to my home.h right now, and that's where that template that I created exists, we have a basic form which does not do anything, an input which does not also do anything, and right here we have a card with a heading my to-do list and just an unordered list that displays some fake to-do list items. Okay, so what happens when we want to submit this form and let it go to an endpoint in our server and actually persist that data? First of all, I'll start in my routes file, and we're going to define a route which is going to be a post route that is going to handle that. So I'll make this to go to the home page, and this is going to go to do controller, and I'll say it should use the store function. Okay, so when we hit this endpoint making a post request, it's going to go to the to-do controller.store function. So right now, if we go to our to-do controller, we have no store function, right? So let's create one. So I'm going to create a store function, and obviously this takes in the context, right? And I think we're going to be needing request, and we're also going to be needing response. I'll explain later. So I know we're going to be making some database queries, so this should be asynchronous. So from our routes file, we hit this endpoint with a post request. It takes us to our to-do controller.store method. Back to our home.h, how do we actually make a post request to our server? We have to specify a method right here, right? So this method has to be post. And how do we specify the action? The action is what endpoint in the application is taking care of this request. So using my curly braces right here, Adonis provides us with a helper function called route, and this helps us to link to a specific route that we defined in our routes file. Now, you can give this route an alias that you're going to use here, or you can actually use the route definition as the alias, which means right here we are saying the route that should handle this is the to-do controller.store route. Okay, so this route specifically is going to handle this post request from this form. Okay, so if we want to receive data from this input, we have to give it a name, right? So we're going to call it name text. All right, so when we submit this form, it should go to that endpoint. And what's going to happen to our to-do controller? Why don't we just start by returning a response, and this is going to be a redirect. So response.redirect, and would redirect to the home page, okay, to the home route. So when it hits this endpoint, we just need to see a redirect back to this route. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. We're making a post request. We type in some data, test-driven Node.js, for example, and when I hit enter, it submits that form. And we have a 403 error right here. HTTP exception, bad Csrf token, invalid Csrf token. So what is this about? The Csrf stands for cross-site request forgery, and basically this means someone who is not supposed to make requests to our application is actually making an application, which means he's forging a request. So how do we make sure that people from external applications or users can't access our application endpoints? We generate a Csrf token. Now, what does this token mean? Before rendering the view, we generate the token on our server, and then we put it in the view, which means when the user is trying to make another request to our endpoint, then we are going to check that token if we actually are the ones who created that token, okay? So if we are the ones who created the token, then we're going to permit the request. But if not, then we're going to reject the request. So how do we create this token in Adonis? I'll go back to my home.h, and right here, I'm going to print out using the Csrf field function, and I'm going to call it, it's a method. If I come back and I refresh the home page so that we have that home, I'll check out the page source right now, and you see that we have something a little different. So right here where we printed out the Csrf field, we have this new field that has been added to us, and it's a hidden field, and the name is Csrf, and the value is this token right here. And if I refresh, you can see that the token is automatically regenerated every time a new request is made. So what does Adonis do? It gives us this token on our front end, and it knows how it created this token. So when we submit a post request to the server, providing this token in the request, then Adonis is going to cross-check this token to make sure that this token is coming from the application and not from any external source. And if that is the case, it's going to permit the token. Yeah, sure enough, you can actually disable this functionality in Adonis if you don't want it. But trust me, it's really secure, and I recommend you leave it in. Okay, so now that we've added that, let's go ahead and try to actually create a to-do to see if we're going to have that error anymore. So, test-driven Node.js, hit enter, and the request redirects back to the home page like we specified in our to-do controller. So, what are we going to do to create a to-do? We need to get the form data from this form, right? So, how do we get the data? I'm just going to console.log request right here. And I'm going to call an all function on it. And this all function helps us get the body of the request that is coming in, okay? And behind the scenes, it actually uses body parser. So I'm going to make this request again, and I'll open my terminal to the tab where we have our application running. Type in test-driven Node.js, hit enter. Page is refreshed. If we check my terminal, we have this object logged to our console, which contains the Csrf token and the text. It means that we can get the body from request.all, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to create a to-do, and this is going to be await to-do.create. We'll pass in an object, and the text is going to be body.text. So whatever is coming from the form is going to be passed into this text field into the database, and our to-do model will persist that data to our database, okay? And then we redirect to the home page. So let's refresh, and if we submit test-driven Node.js and hit enter, we are redirected back to this page. But let's check out our database table and give it a quick refresh. Yay! And now we have our test-driven Node.js to do in our database. So we're successfully getting data from our form and actually persisting it into our database. Great job! Let's have some more fun in the very next lesson.